Meanwhile, it's my privilege to bring in Karl Rove as we look back at night number one. And Karl, I saw some of your analysis last night. We saw diversity, we saw accomplishments, we saw gun rights, and we saw some future stars. Was it better than you thought it was going to be?
Yeah. Absolutely. Production values high, moved quickly. I thought Tim Scott's speech was terrific. I thought Nikki Haley hit it out of the park. This was a chance to start what they need to achieve. They've got five things were evident last night. The biggest one was promises made, promises kept. They began right from the beginning in strong contrast on three big issues. They talked about coronavirus, which they have to talk about. Biden's got a lead on it, an edge on it. They got to remove that edge. They talked about the economy, contrasting the two visions of the men, and they talked about law and order in our cities. They also began to humanize Trump. I thought some of the more effective moments were him with the frontline workers, everybody from a nurse to a truck driver. I thought also there was a tension here in the tone. You had some which were red meat aimed at the base, but a lot of last night was aimed at those swing voters who are sitting there saying, I sort of like what he's done, but I want him to get more comfortable with him. Right. And I thought that was particularly effective. We'll start seeing more, I suspect, of the second-term agenda. They laid it out on Sunday night in a document. We began to hear about it yesterday, but I suspect we'll hear more of it as the week goes on. But I thought it was a very effective first night.
Sure. And, essentially they were saying Donald Trump has gotten a lot done. If Joe Biden is elected, he would undo all that stuff. Karl, we heard yesterday that the president would have a surprise every night in the 10 o'clock hour. And last night, the surprise was something he's obviously very proud of, and that is the fact that he and his administration have freed over 50 hostages. He had 6 of them at the White House yesterday. Watch this.
I'm very pleased to let everybody know that we brought back over 50 hostages from 22 different countries.
Your administration really fought for me, and I think if you hadn't done that, I may still be in Turkey.
I was held in Syria for 63 days, and I think I speak for my fellow former hostages and detainees here when I say I'm as grateful as I've ever been for anything to be home safely.
What you did, sir, is you were able to get me out of that prison in record time. It was amazing.
I remember a lot of people asking me, what was it like meeting President Trump? And I just say I was blown away. I had just gotten released after 2 years. Then I'm shaking the hand of the president in the Oval Office.
On behalf of my family and myself, thank you, President Trump, for getting us out and getting us home.
So, Karl, that's one of the things politicians try to do is once they have a policy or they do something, rather than just hear about hostages, we met the hostages, and that really personifies them and the president.
Yeah, absolutely. That's again one of the interesting breakaways. The other one was the frontline workers that humanized Donald Trump, and in this case draw attention to something that most Americans were not aware of, and did so, I thought, in a particularly powerful way.
Yeah, because the left wants to be critical of the way he handled COVID, but when you heard from some of those frontline workers and people that had had COVID, they all were praising the president for his response to this. There was also an interesting thing last night. If you watch C-SPAN. They aired the entire RNC, and then they took some reaction at the end. And there was a caller. His name is Rick, and he's from Ohio. He said, I've been a lifelong Democrat, but this year I'm changing my party. Listen to this.
I'm a lifelong Democrat. I'm from Lorain, Ohio, which is a Democrat city in Ohio. And I just want to say, after watching the convention tonight, I am definitely changing my vote to Republican. The heartfelt way they came across to the American people, and I was really touched by the number of times they used the word God. They put God into everything, and the people on the Democratic side on their convention act like they were pushing God right out of it, and that had a lot to do with changing my mind.
Karl, that was a theme. I noticed that a lot last night, too. Pro-America, the flag, the pledge, and a lot of prayers and a lot of God blesses, and please pray for our country. What's your thought?
Yeah. Well, Lorain is in northeast Ohio in a mostly Democrat area, Lucas County, I believe.
Of course you know that.
Of course, it's sad. It's a sad thing.
But how did they vote in '88, Karl?
Right.
Yeah, this is indicative of the problem that Democrats have in the middle part of the country, in that people who are animated by sort of traditional values of patriotism, a belief in America as an exceptional country, religious people, they are drawn to the Republican ticket this year, I suspect in part because of the strong contrast with the Democrats. I mean, we had elements of the Democratic Party who said the Pledge of Allegiance, but refused to use the words "under God," for example. So there's the people on the East Coast and the West Coast, sort of the elites in America and the academia, they don't understand how much values motivates what ordinary people do when they come to the polling place. And I thought that was an interesting moment. May I offer up one bit of criticism though about last night? I missed the Hollywood squares that we had during the Democratic convention. I mean, I thought that was
Zoom call?
I mean, what a brilliant piece of programming the Democrats had by having the entire screen covered in boxes with people sort of clapping or whatever. I thought, obviously,
Nancy Pelosi to block.
Right.
But
Yeah,
did you
obviously being
see,
sarcastic,
Carl,
but-
did you see, Carly Shimkus did a report on this. If you zoomed in on those boxes, some of them were repeats.
Duplicates.
Yeah, one lady
And
wearing
some
a
of them
white
were
shirt, she was the same
duplicates.
way.
Yeah,
Exactly.
Exactly.
Right.
Exactly.
And Carl, but a lot of people are watching and saying, Joe Biden's not talking about defunding the police. He's not talking about socialized medicine. But I have news for you. The Democratic Party is over 1,000 delegates voted against the platform. And the more he's forced to talk about how moderate he is, the more susceptible he is to losing that progressive liberal base that did not vote for what he talked about. So that's the problem. If you could get close enough in these polls to force Joe Biden to actually campaign, this whole thing could blow apart.
Yeah, yeah. And look, at the media cover for him, I picked up this morning my device and began reading. NBC dealt with the issue of last night of the Republicans' attack on violence in our cities and said, but of course, Biden and Kamala Harris have been out there denouncing the violence. And I have searched for that. I've actually thought about writing a column. I found one instance with about 5 words where Biden sort of dismisses the violence in our cities. But they're literally, Portland goes up. They try and burn down the courthouse, and the next day in a hearing, Senator Harris is saying to the head of DHS, "Why are you attacking, quote, moms and veterans?" No denouncing of the violence, and this is a real weakness for the Democrats. A lot of people in America are concerned about why is it that both parties do not stand up and denounce, and why is only one party denouncing the violence that we're seeing in our streets and in our major cities.
I think we're going to hear a lot of that this week. All right, Karl Rove up late last night and up early today. Karl, thank you very much.
You bet.